January the 27th, 1967, at Cape Canaveral, Florida. 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, sealed themselves inside Apollo 1 for what NASA called a plugs-out simulation. A rehearsal, a formality before the real mission. They had done it 100 times. At 6:31 in the evening, a technician heard a voice through the intercom. 2 seconds later, for as long as human beings have looked up at the night sky, we have wanted to go there. Not just to look at it, to reach it.
Okay. At the foot of the ladder, the lamb footbeds are only...
The 20th century turned that obsession into a race, a geopolitical, technological, almost religious pursuit of the stars. 2 superpowers, billions of dollars, entire generations of engineers, scientists, pilots, and dreamers, all pointing toward the same impossible horizon. But here is the truth they don't put on the posters. Space doesn't want us there. It is a vacuum, a void, an environment so hostile to human life that the margin between survival and death can be measured in fractions of a degree, a fraction of an inch, a single faulty seal. And yet, they all went anyway. Some of them never came back. "14 months before John Glenn became an American hero, a 24-year-old Soviet Air Force pilot named Valentin Bondarenko was completing a 10-day isolation experiment inside a pressure chamber in Moscow. He was young, brilliant, considered one of the most promising cosmonauts in the Soviet program. When his shift ended, Bondarenko removed medical sensors from his body and casually tossed an alcohol-soaked cotton swab aside. It landed on a hot plate. In an atmosphere pressurized almost entirely with oxygen, the chamber became a furnace in seconds. Bondarenko burned for hours before help reached him. He died the next morning. The Soviet government buried the story for nearly 3 decades. His name was erased from photographs. His tragedy was classified. But the terrible irony, the haunting, unbearable irony, is that 6 years later, almost the exact same conditions would kill 3 American astronauts on the other side of the world. The 2 most powerful nations on Earth were both racing to space, and both were about to make the same catastrophic mistake. Gus Grissom was one of the original Mercury 7, the first class of American astronauts, chosen from hundreds of test pilots as the finest of the finest. He had already flown twice. He was competitive, demanding, and obsessed with getting things right. He was deeply worried about Apollo 1. Weeks before the fire, Grissom hung a lemon on the spacecraft's simulator, a mechanic's old joke about a machine that doesn't work. He had submitted complaint after complaint about the vehicle's wiring, the hatch design, the oxygen atmosphere. Nobody listened. Ed White was different from Grissom in almost every way. Warm, magnetic, the kind of man who lit up every room he walked into. He had been the first American to walk in space. He had floated 150 miles above the Earth and later said it was the saddest moment of his life when he was told to come back inside. Roger Chaffee was 31 years old, a rookie. He hadn't yet flown in space, and Apollo 1 was going to be his first mission. He had a wife, 2 children, and his entire life ahead of him. The fire investigators later found the ignition source near a bundle of damaged wiring beneath Grissom's seat. In the pure oxygen environment NASA had chosen for the cabin, the flames moved so fast, so ferociously, that nothing inside had a chance. The hatch took a minimum of 90 seconds to open from the outside. The crew was gone in less than 30. The nation went into shock. NASA went into a full 20-month shutdown. And in the investigation that followed, engineers found something staggering. The spacecraft had over 1,400 documented design and workmanship deficiencies. 3 men died inside a machine that should never have been approved for human beings. In the same year that Apollo 1 killed Grissom, White, and Chaffee, the Soviet space program was quietly preparing its own disaster. Vladimir Komarov was one of the most decorated cosmonauts in Soviet history. He was intelligent, experienced, deeply respected. He was also the close personal friend of Yuri Gagarin, the first human to ever travel to space. And in April of 1967, Komarov knew he was going to die. Soyuz 1 was a deeply flawed vehicle. Engineers had submitted over 200 technical problems before launch. Komarov's colleagues reportedly tried to get the mission scrubbed. According to declassified accounts, Komarov himself reportedly told a friend that he knew he wouldn't make it back, but he refused to step aside because if he did, his friend Gagarin would take his place. He was not going to let Gagarin die, so Komarov flew. Soyuz 1 launched on April 23, 1967. From the moment it reached orbit, the spacecraft began to fail. Solar panels wouldn't deploy. Attitude controls malfunctioned. The mission was cut short. On re-entry, the main parachute failed to open properly. Soyuz 1 hit the ground at nearly 100 miles per hour. It exploded on impact. The last transmission from Komarov, recorded by foreign intelligence agencies, was described as a man not afraid, not pleading, but furious. Furious at the people who had sent him into a broken machine. He was posthumously awarded the Soviet Union's highest honor. His family was given a car. It was 36 degrees at the launch pad that morning. Engineers at Morton Thiokol, the company that built the solid rocket boosters, had spent the entire night before the launch trying to stop it. They knew the rubber O-ring seals that held the rocket sections together were not certified to perform in temperatures below 53 degrees. They were overruled. The Space Shuttle Challenger lifted off at 11:38 a.m. 73 seconds later, it was gone. The crew of 7 included people who had dedicated their lives to exploration and education: Francis Scobie, the commander; Michael Smith, the pilot; mission specialists Judith Resnick, Ellison Onizuka, and Ronald McNair; payload specialist Gregory Jarvis; and Krista McAuliffe, a high school teacher from New Hampshire who had been selected from over 11,000 applicants to be the first civilian in space. Her students watched from their classroom. The investigation was not kind. The Rogers Commission, the panel convened to find out what happened, concluded that the O-ring failure had been a known, documented risk for years. Warning after warning had been filed, and each time the pressure of schedule and budget and public expectation had won. Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist on the commission, dropped a piece of O-ring material into a glass of ice water during a live press conference. It went rigid. He looked into the camera and said, "For a successful technology, reality must take precedence over public relations." 7 people paid for that lesson with their lives. The Space Shuttle Columbia had been in orbit for 16 days. The crew of 7 was returning home. What nobody on the ground wanted to admit, what some of them knew but couldn't prove, was that something had gone wrong during launch. A piece of foam insulation from the external fuel tank had broken off and struck the leading edge of Columbia's left wing at approximately 500 miles per hour. NASA managers had been told. They had requested satellite imagery to assess the damage. The request was denied. The assessment was that the shuttle would either land safely or there was nothing they could do anyway. As Columbia re-entered Earth's atmosphere, superheated plasma, reaching temperatures of nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, found the breach in the wing and tore inward. The orbiter broke apart over Texas and Louisiana. Debris rained across 4 states. The 7 crew members, Rick Husband, William McCool, Michael Anderson, Ilan Ramon, Israel's first astronaut, Kalpana Chawla, David Brown, and Laurel Clark, were gone. The Columbia Accident Investigation Board did not mince words in its final report. It found that the culture at NASA, the institutional normalization of risk, the pressure to meet schedules, the erosion of safety as a priority, was just as responsible for the disaster as the foam debris. It was not just an engineering failure, it was a failure of human judgment, institutional arrogance, and the slow, dangerous habit of accepting what should never have been accepted. Here is what the history books sometimes fail to capture. Every single one of these tragedies led directly to changes that saved lives. After Apollo 1, NASA redesigned the entire spacecraft from the ground up. The pure oxygen atmosphere was replaced with a safer oxygen-nitrogen mix. The hatch was redesigned to open outward in 3 seconds. Thousands of miles of flammable wiring were replaced. The culture of dismissing astronaut complaints was, at least for a time, shattered.
Okay. At the foot of the ladder, the LEM footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches.
The Apollo program that eventually landed on the moon was fundamentally safer because 3 men died in a launchpad fire. After Soyuz 1 and subsequent Soviet failures, the entire Soyuz design was overhauled. The spacecraft that emerged from that process would become one of the most reliable crew vehicles in human spaceflight history. So reliable that after the shuttle fleet was retired, it was the only way to reach the International Space Station for nearly a decade. After Challenger, NASA grounded the shuttle fleet for nearly 3 years. The solid rocket boosters were completely redesigned. The O-ring joint was replaced with an entirely new system. Launch decision processes were reformed. And engineers, the people who actually built and understood these machines, were given more formal authority to halt a mission. After Columbia, NASA implemented the most sweeping safety overhaul in its modern history. Orbiter inspections in space were made mandatory. Imagery analysis protocols were rebuilt from scratch. Foam shedding was treated as an unacceptable risk, not an acceptable one. A rescue mission capability was developed so that if another crew was stranded in orbit, they could survive until help arrived. Progress in human spaceflight has never moved in a straight line. It moves through grief. Today, more than 270 human beings have traveled to the International Space Station. They sleep in a habitat that took over 15 countries and more than 40 separate missions to build. When they suit up, the suit they wear reflects decades of engineering lessons, some of them written in blood. When a crew launches, there are hundreds of abort scenarios planned for, rehearsed, tested, and retested. Emergency egress systems, launch escape towers, real-time monitoring of thousands of data points by teams of engineers watching for the first sign of anything that shouldn't be there. None of that happened by accident. None of that happened because a committee thought it was a good idea. It happened because people died. Gus Grissom complained that the spacecraft wasn't safe. He was right. Vladimir Komarov flew a mission he knew would kill him. He did it to protect someone he loved. The engineers at Morton Thiokol told NASA not to launch Challenger. They were overruled. The managers who requested satellite imagery of Columbia's damaged wing were told it wasn't worth the effort. In every single case, someone knew. And in every single case, the system, the bureaucracy, the budget pressure, the politics of a space program that had to justify itself to the public, overrode what the engineers and the astronauts and the evidence was saying. The lesson is not that space is too dangerous. The lesson is that progress becomes catastrophic when we stop listening to the people who are closest to the risk. There is a memorial wall at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. On it are the names of every American astronaut killed in the pursuit of spaceflight. The wall doesn't explain what went wrong. It doesn't list the investigations, the reports, the redesigns, the safety improvements. It just lists the names, because at the end of every accident report, every engineering overhaul, every congressional hearing, there were people. People who got up in the morning and drove to work. People who had families waiting for them. People who genuinely believed that what they were doing mattered, that reaching beyond this planet was worth the risk, worth the sacrifice, worth everything. They were not wrong. Every time a rocket leaves Earth's atmosphere, every time a crew docks at the International Space Station, every time we talk about sending human beings to Mars, to the moon's surface, to the asteroids, to wherever comes next, we are standing on something. We are standing on the shoulders of the people who came before us and did not come back. Gus Grissom, Ed White, Roger Chaffee, Valentin Bondarenko, Vladimir Komarov, Dobrovolsky, Volkov, Patsiev, Francis Scobie, Michael Smith, Judith Resnick, Ellison Onizuka, Ronald McNair, Gregory Jarvis, Krista McAuliffe, Rick Husband, William McCool, Michael Anderson, Elon Ramon, Kalpana Chawla, David Brown, Laurel Clark. They didn't just dream of the stars, they paid for them.
15 seconds, guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Okay, engine stop. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're
We're going to be busy for a minute.
Armstrong is on the moon.
Yeah,
Neil
they're going to land
Armstrong,
now.
38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful, man.